Hi, everybody. Welcome to part 2 of Budget with True Teacher Talk. In part 1, we took a look at all of the reasons that money gives teachers hives. In this part, we will examine the light at the end of the tunnel known as ESSER funds. If you're just tuning in, ESSER is your new favorite acronym. It stands for Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief, and essentially it is stimulus funding for school districts to address the absolute mess that COVID created. All of this to the delightful tune of more than $200 billion. In this video, we will do a deep dive into what ESSER funds are designated for and how you can make sure you and your students are getting the financial support that you are entitled to. So let me just preface this with the fact that I was a classroom teacher just a few months ago, and I did not hear about ESSER funding until I started working at Texthelp. So if this is the first time you're hearing, you're likely not alone. I'm not quite sure why, but this doesn't seem to be a highly publicized topic. You'd think we would all be celebrating, if anything. And of course, you'll never catch me complaining about free money. But the way this has all been presented on the internet, it's just a lot of information to unpack. And I question at times whether states truly realize the power that they have. So this slide breaks down the 3 rounds of ESSER funding, including the amount of money granted in each round, when they must be spent by, and recommendations about what they should be spent on. Now would be a great time to pause the video to take a closer look at the information provided here. Educational agencies have been given considerable flexibility when it comes to spending, but there have been some stricter guidelines established on how a percentage of these funds must be spent. And for the purpose of this video, I'm going to focus on the expectation from the powers that be that at least 20% of total ESSER funds must be spent to address learning loss through the use of evidence-based interventions. These interventions should respond to students' social, emotional, and academic needs. Just a little side tangent here. I think it makes a lot more sense to say unfinished learning instead of learning loss, because learning loss insinuates that students have knowledge that has since disappeared. But that's not really always the case. If anything, educators are filling in gaps, not because something disappeared, but because it was never there in the first place. Learning was sporadic at best and completely disjointed, and not to mention it was a global pandemic. Our students' minds were understandably elsewhere. So for the sake of being accurate, unfinished learning is a way better phrase to capture the reality of the situation. So what is your district doing to address the guidance given on this spending? Besides building upgrades and updating HVAC systems, which seems to be the most popular use of these funds, do you have any idea? Because there are literally endless possibilities, and it hurts my head to think of all that could be purchased to begin to address those academic gaps and recover from the grasps of the pandemic. So we know that there is an unprecedented amount of funding available. It has been distributed based on each district's Title I allocation. But since amounts granted vary state to state and district to district, there are several online resources for you to figure out just how much dough your specific school district is rolling in. I found this interactive map that broke funding down by state and then further down by district to be super user-friendly. It's the first link here. But a quick Google search will yield plenty of options for you to choose from to get down to the true nitty-gritty of what you're working with. So I recommend using these 2 links to jumpstart your exploration, but if you're having trouble locating your funding, please reach out to me. I am happy to provide assistance. So this article by McKinsey & Company, they did some research on the effects of the pandemic on K-12 student learning. And I thought that this was a really eye-opening statistic that students on average, K-12, are 5 months behind in math and 4 months behind in reading. And I'm sure it does not surprise you to hear that it is hitting historically disadvantaged students the hardest. But what this really is telling us is that any student sitting in front of you can have hidden deficits. So all need access to resources that can fill in those gaps. And this is also from the same article. It's clear that there is a sense of urgency here and that everything needs to be done to make sure that the playing field stays level, that students are engaged, and that nobody is being left behind. And the way that we approach learning moving forward must be equitable as well as innovative in order to start to see improvements. So if anything I have said inspires you, good news! Texthelp has solutions for that. All of our digital tools are super easy to use and research-based with demonstrated effectiveness. This correlates directly with the ESSER funding requirement of using evidence-based interventions to accelerate unfinished learning. Our solutions are flexible and responsive and allow students with a variety of needs to access the support they require. Our comprehensive digital suite of products replaces the need to purchase many other supplies, many of which are purchased in large volumes and somehow they still run out. The left side of this screen easily represents hundreds and hundreds of dollars in supplies, whereas our 5 dynamic solutions, when purchased at the domain level price, cost on average between $1 and $1.80 per student. We have Read and Write, which is our literacy toolbar. That has 20 built-in tools such as highlighters, dictionaries, translator, which the ELL folks can appreciate, even screen masks, which are a supply that special ed teachers and occupational therapists know very well. Equatio is our equation editor and digital whiteboard. I'm looking at you, math and STEM folks. Equatio has built-in manipulatives, Desmos graphing, collaborative workspaces, a full color periodic table. Forget about purchasing color ink or protractors or rulers or paper. You have it all built right in. Fluency Tutor has built-in passages, a timer, recording and commenting features ready to go. No need to wrangle any additional supplies to strengthen oral reading fluency. OrbitNote makes PDFs accessible and actionable with a bunch of annotation tools, including freehand drawing, pushpin notes, erasers, anything you can think of to bring worksheets to life, minus actual writing utensils that break and dry out. And last but not least, WriteQ gives students an online medium to write and allows you to give them fast, effective feedback without needing to even pull a cap off a pen in order to do so. Besides being economically smart, all of our tools are efficient and designed to meet students' unique needs while enhancing the overall quality of their learning, which in itself is invaluable. So let's take a look at this hypothetical situation. As we crunch these numbers, you'll see just how mind-blowing it is, and it will show you just how much funding is available. So if a district has 1,000 students and they've been granted $3.2 million total in ESSER funding, 20% of that means that $640,000 must be allocated to address learning loss. If you were to buy our flagship product, Read and Write Today, at the domain level price of $1.80 per student, that would cost a whopping $1,800 total. That is way less than even 1% of your allotted budget. In fact, for the math teachers watching, it is 0.28125%. That's crazy. And don't even get me started on how we also offer stackable discounts on top of this already reasonable price for multi-product purchases as well as multi-year. You can cover student supports across all curricular needs for a tiny fraction of the overall funding available. It's truly such a small price to pay to close the literacy gap that COVID has exploded wide open. A small investment for exponential growth. So if you take a look here, you can see how Texthelp's tools align seamlessly with ESSER guidelines. Stimulus funding in terms of ed tech should be used to address the unique needs of at-risk students. Those are students with disabilities, low income, ELL, historically disadvantaged groups. But at its core, when implemented properly, EdTech really supports the entire span of students that you have sitting in front of you, not just those identified as needing such accommodations. And really excited, recently, 3 of our products, Equatio, WriteQ, and Fluency Tutor, We're awarded the Tech and Learning Awards of Excellence for remote learning for delivering continuous learning during the COVID-19 pandemic. So proven solutions. If we go back to budget part 1, where we talked about these teacher stressors, they really don't have to be stressors anymore. Funding constraints, well, there are actually funds set aside for these resources. It's a miracle. Student need, well, nobody at home needs to buy or replenish anything. Everything you need is built right in. Teaching salary, none of your personal money needs to go towards this. Wasteful usage of materials, well, they're all reusable digital platforms, so you really get an infinite amount of usage. And the pandemic's effect on resource sharing, well, kids have their own devices, so see you later, germs. So if you're taking the time to listen to this, you are clearly dedicated and in it to win it. And we know that great teachers fiercely advocate for their students to ensure they're all provided with a quality, rigorous, equitable education. The scenario is no different, and you need to feel emboldened to question where and how these funds are being used in order to be a true agent of change for your kids. You got to head to your admin, channel your inner Jerry Maguire, and say, show me the money. Okay, but like, I get it. It's easier said than done, right? This can be a challenging task, but you can do it. You never know if another stimulus package will be passed, so no time is better than now. Immediacy is key. If not you, then who? So I made this list here for you of some pieces of advice of how to make ESSER funds work for you. So your homework, haha, teacher joke, is to reach out to whoever sent you this amazing video, or me, so they can discuss ESSER funding and Texthelp solutions with you. And did you know that Read and Write and Equatio are always free for teachers? You don't even have to use an ounce of ESSER funding to begin your deep dive into those solutions. Cool. In a society where nothing is given for free to teachers, I highly recommend taking advantage of this opportunity. And if you're genuinely interested, Texthelp does offer complimentary pilots, so you can get your students on board too and see what they think. Thank you so much for joining me today for True Teacher Talk. Until next time, and best of luck chasing those ESSER funds. You got this.